in his pocket. It said, "I can't live anymore after what I saw. I know him to be the most honest man." It was a misunderstanding. Save him. Help him. I leave this life, for I cannot guard my own father.
Vasileva Ludmila Nikitishna, born in 1918, was on Kolyma from 1938 to 1952.
It was unbearable. They made us, the women, wash the gold. Once we were given cigarettes and sent into the mines. Suddenly I saw the people, like skeletons. They would move, fall, rise and fall again. There was a rule that if somebody carted so many wheelbarrows, they would receive a cigarette.
12 months a year, it's winter. The rest of the time, it's summer. By November, it was already 40 degrees below zero. There was a rule work was to be canceled if the temperature was lower than 50 below. But none of the inmates ever saw a thermometer. It was the authorities outside the barbed wire who decided what the temperature was. So he didn't really beat me. Simply held my legs against the burning stove. The commander. He took me with him through Kolyma from camp to camp. I knew this man to be a fanatic. He never spared himself. He sacrificed himself for the sake of the gold extraction plan. He always said that one day of the war's expenses could be paid for by one working day in Kolyma. It was the war. Tin minerals were being extracted from Kolyma for the country's war industry. The extent of the war effort in Kolyma was creating good living conditions for the guards instead of preparing barracks for the frost, or providing the camp with provisions and warm clothes. We needed strong manpower there to fulfill the plan and to give the state the additional kilos of gold.
I had already become a skeleton. My body was covered with scurvy ulcers, and every movement caused me pain. Kovalov Vasily Ivanovich, born in 1930, a Kolyma inmate condemned under Article 58.
They arrested me on the 26th of October. They wouldn't bring an accusation against me until December. In the meantime, they beat me every day.
Popova Lubov Alexandrovna, born in the Kolyma camp in 1941.
If the Germans captured a city somewhere, the atmosphere became gloomy. If Soviet troops beat the enemy, we had a celebration, and we were even given food.
My father was sent to prison. When my mother visited him in the prison, she was told to gather a certain amount of money, and then her husband would be set free. And she brought it to the prison. They told her, "Your husband has been shot."
The front needed soldiers, and no new convicts entered the camp. Those there had to work hard. Besides, there was a shortage of medics. They were glad to find anybody with even a little knowledge of medicine. And I had been a student at the medical institute. Tetsora Nikolai Semenovich, born in 1909, a Kolyma inmate, condemned under Article 58, rehabilitated. That there were people in the camps who could keep true human features, despite all of the horrors, hunger, cold, and blows. And those were the sextants and the priests.
The two priests were thrown into the cell. The Khans raped both of them. One was 30, the other was 45. He was gray-haired. I protested against it, but they told me, "Offender, sir, it's not your business." And they raped them that way. I asked them, "Where's your God? Why didn't he shield you from this?"
Zhigulin Anatoly Vladimirovich, born 1930, a Kolyma inmate condemned under Article 58, rehabilitated.
Should a small party of thieves get into a bitch camp, they were destined to either die or turn bitch. I watched the following scene. Everyone was lined up. The chief was sitting in a chair under a pole. Attached to the pole was a rail used to signal the guards. Two guys holding knives brought out a young thief from the punishment cell and marched him along the formation. Then he was led to the pole and handed a small crowbar. He gave 3 knocks on the rail suspended from the pole. That was ritual. The bitch's chief then got up from the chair, solemnly unzipped his fly, and the hapless thief would kiss his penis. Then he was handed a dagger, thus turning him into a full-fledged bitch. Then he was supposed to kill some of his old mates. Then he ceased to be human. There was the entire formation standing. Mujiks, spoilers, friars. Then there was him, keeping mum before them, with all feeling ashamed. I thought then, I'd rather die. There was an uprising against the common criminals. They were killed the same way as in the movies, only the common criminals.
Solovyov Sergei Dmitrovich, born in 1916, Kolyma inmate, condemned under Article 58.
I was sentenced to 25 years of prison by a martial tribunal. When we Russians first got abroad, we came back totally different people. A tremendous lie was revealed, that all the peoples lived terribly, that they were tortured everywhere. This lie was meant for idiots alone. The Russians began to develop new ideas. Among the soldiers, there were decent, worthy, sensible people who were able to analyze our past and what we had then and what lay ahead.
Levizinsky Volya Vadimovich, born in 1930, a Kolyma inmate, condemned under Article 58, rehabilitated.
Among us politicals was a former army commander. He was so timid he'd die from a cart creaking. We read about heroes like him in textbooks, but these same heroes allowed themselves to be humiliated and outraged by the cons. This is not to mention the guards. Convicts fall into two categories: thieves and bitches. Thieves imply the dignified underworld, one that declines to serve camp supervisors. Our guilt was there to be sure, gave us strength. Found guilty, we felt better than those taken without any guilt at all. A restricted area was being set up. White planks, pegs were being built around the workplace. A guard said to me, "Hey, 594. My number was E594. I still keep it. My camp number. Cut down that little tree. It's blocking my view. I said, but it's outside the zone. You have my permission. Then our mate yelled, Zhigulin, Raevsky, don't go. All team, lie down on the sleepers between the rails. Don't obey the escort's orders. He wants to kill you. My friends and I wanted to escape. They perished. And I found myself in the zone. It was impossible to flee from Kolyma. I was beaten, kicked by a soldier's boots. My ribs and teeth were broken. I understood that there was an underground organization in the camp. As for me, I had always dreamed about escape. This thought was always in my head. They explained to me they'd set the camp free. I gave my consent and joined them. We waited in the permafrost and darkness. They were looking for us for a long time. The mine didn't work for a month. They poisoned us with gas, but we had medications, food, knives, grenades, and guns. We tried to go outside, but there were soldiers everywhere and had to spend 24 hours hanging onto the overhead cable. The guards with dogs got into the mine. They failed to find us. We had no food to eat by that time. We went outside. We passed the watchtowers. The whole area was lit. If they saw us, I was to throw a grenade. Then we passed through the bushes and realized that it was freedom. Could you imagine? We never believed it was possible to escape, not only from the mine, but from the hands of the KGB.
That day was much awaited in Kolyma. Victory wasn't only happy news. It was the hope of forthcoming freedom for those who survived. They said, whoever wasn't in prison during the war didn't see the worst of it. People still had hope and faith. Minka Elena Semyonovna, born 1926. A Kolyma inmate condemned under Article 58. Rehabilitated.
Suddenly, on January 17th, the door flung open, and in stepped 3 men, stripes on the sides of their uniform trousers. I instantly realized these were office holders. My heart said, they've come to get me. At the pier, men were loaded into one hold, women into another. Female thieves were grouped together. They had razors and used them. Clothes were taken away, and gold teeth were knocked out with spoons. Suddenly there was a knock on the partition. A knock with an axe or a crowbar from the other side. The blows were getting stronger. And a lip-shaped hole developed, and a mob of hooligans streamed in. They grabbed the women and dragged them onto the plank beds. They screamed, of course. The very sight of them and the onslaught were horrendous. We bunched by the gangway. A virgin, I was horrified. The guard fired some warning shots. The mob retreated. I descended into the next to last step. Women were being raped on all tiers of the plank beds. The whole scene was beyond description. Something totally incredible. The escort with a Tommy gun yelled, "I'll open fire." That was a lucky moment for me. I grabbed hold of his gun like this. He thought I was trying to wrest it from him. I simply held on to it. He stepped back reflexively, and I instantly dashed onto the deck. Nagayeva Bay, our place of destination, at long last. How many days we sailed, I really don't know. Suddenly we saw fire trucks approaching the pier. The hatch was lifted and all were ordered out. But nobody rose. A massive rape was going on. The Kolyma tram. Convicts wouldn't let the women free. To separate them from the rapists, a mighty fire pump was used. The lower beds were flooded down there. There was a card game on with people's lives as the stakes. The stabbed were tossed from the beds. Dead bodies and human wastes were seen floating around. Boat hooks were used to fish the bodies out. Tree-felling was seen as penal work. We got up at 5 in the morning and hurried to run to the canteen for soup and bread. You would put on everything you had, cover your face with rags, leaving only small holes for the eyes. But still it didn't save you from the cold. The snowstorm was so strong that you couldn't see in it, as far as the back of the person in front of you. The horses only brought 1/3 of the required tools, as always. As the guards ordered picking up the implements, we, exerting every effort, would dash to the sledges laden with saws and axes, so as to grab the first implement that comes your way.